Hello, this is the Crazy for Cult Reviews. I'm Vanessa Cozini, and I'm crazy for all things cult. We're uncensored, unscripted, and slightly unhinged. There will be spoilers, there may be blood. And that's quite fitting for this week's video.
Yes, it is.
So with me is Stephanie.
Hello.
So Steph, you've got stuff going on. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yes, part of Geek Fashion Week, which I talked about last time, and we have a panel at Comikaze on November 1st at 9 a.m. I know some of you will be hungover. Come anyway. 9 a.m. about Geek Fashion Week coming up next year. Sorry, I've been up since before 5 a.m. And a little bit of, actually, I only know what I'm talking about, which is accessories and flying your geekness under the radar when you're attempting either A, to get a job and you still want to show some of your personality, or you're not quite comfortable but you want to dabble. And so again, our panel is Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at Comikaze.
And you know, the last thing I remember at 9 a.m. that I wanted to go to was Stephen Amell at the, help me out here,
Nerd HQ.
Nerd HQ. And he said, hey, I'm a great reason to get up early.
Yeah, Stephen Amell is a great reason to get up early. Our podcast, or our panel will be fun. It will be exciting, and we will have lots of tips. I believe the other people on the panel are Dina Kampmeyer,
Tony?
I don't know, Tony's got a panel, Mike Powell, and I believe Josephine Moss, which Josephine will wake you up.
Josephine's great, and what's great about her and Josephine, that's just gold waiting to happen.
Yeah, we tend to kind of, which is amusing for all and terrifying, apparently, which, hey, I'm good with, actually.
I like terrifying.
Yes, and you can find me at Stuff101 on Twitter.
Yes. So this week, we're talking about blood, we're talking about all kinds of good things.
One of my favorite vampire movies, and one I loathe.
It's not Twilight.
You can't pay me to watch Twilight. However,
I can't pay me to review Twilight.
Yeah, well, but if you watch it with riff tracks,
yes,
it's a whole new experience. It's really the only way I've seen it. I've seen the first two that way. Riff tracks and alcohol. Good way to go for Twilight, at least for me. I will say that Twilight, for the most part, had really good soundtracks.
I didn't notice because I didn't watch.
Couldn't help but have to listen to them. And I'm going to stop there.
There was a gun to her head.
In a car.
So, we are talking about Lost Boys. Yes. And we are talking about Interview with the Vampire.
Let's do Interview first.
You can tell she's so excited for it.
It was pretty to look at, I'll give it that. Part of the problem was I loved the book, and I felt that Louis was a whiny, obnoxious twit.
And I'll give you that.
And I still hard time with Tom Cruise's list out. It just doesn't work for me.
So Interview with the Vampire, the book written by Anne Rice, part of the Vampire Chronicles, came out in 1976. The movie came out in 1994. Where was I in 1994? Trying to make sure my niece didn't watch this because she was way too young.
What? And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. I actually got a hold of a editing copy. And watched it way before it came out. Like, and I mean, it still had the tracks and the cut.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean,
had like a little timestamp.
Yeah, so it had all that.
Oh,
and I tried to go into it with an open mind, despite the fact. And I don't hate Tom Cruise. I mean, for the most part, it's kind of I can't picture him doing a role. He's always Tom Cruise.
And I actually found this funny because we talked a little bit beforehand, and I remembered why it didn't bother me, because trust me, I hate Tom Cruise and I don't like Tom Cruise movies. I was young enough to not know who Tom Cruise was yet.
Well, and this is before his whole craziness.
True.
It just
before Oprah and the couch. I didn't like him before then, to be honest.
I don't think he's a horrible human being, and I think actually Born on the 4th of July he was amazing in, and Rain Man he was good, but both of them were really good. But he doesn't work for me as Lestat, however you want to play, because I've heard both ways.
Lestat.
I'll probably go back and forth. It doesn't come off as a charismatic vampire.
It worked for me. It honestly was my first introduction to vampires. I saw this movie and I immediately went out and bought the book. And that was the first time in my life a movie did that for me as well. Of course, Lasher is still my favorite of all of Anne Rice's works.
Yes.
Though I really do wonder if she had an editor. That aside.
That aside. And and I like Brad Pitt. On the whole, I do like Brad Pitt. He wasn't right. I mean, he portrayed Whiny Boy really well, but again, that's not who I wanted to see. I would much prefer to see Two Unknowns. And I can't even think who was really, popular, the it actors. I adore Christian Slater. I thought he was great as the interviewer.
I really wanted to see more of him.
Yeah, because he actually kind of moved the story along without being intrusive. And I liked that. But the film was gorgeous. I mean, the costumes, the set design, it was visually stunning. And I remember thinking that even watching the rough cut that had, I want to say, an extra 40 minutes.
Oh, I wish I could get my hands on that.
No, you don't.
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
Well, because
sometimes editing is a good thing.
Yeah. And it actually, I remember.
Was there more Christian Slater in the original?
Not much.
Okay. Okay. Slight weird confession. He was one of my first Hollywood crushes.
He was one of mine, and I got to meet him still having that crush. So, yeah.
She's met so many people. I'm so jealous.
My stepdad used to do catering and craft service, and he worked on Pump Up the Volume, which
she's made me watch, and I do love.
Yes.
We will be reviewing that eventually.
And I had such a massive crush on him that when he worked on Cuffs, he asked me if I wanted to go, and of course, yes, blah, blah, blah. And one of the nicest guys.
Aww.
And he was very sweet, and just, but Christian Slater and, 19-year-old me. So, yeah.
I was most assuredly not 19.
Hush. Disgusting.
Well, no, I mean, when I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
But, so for me, remind me, who played Louis? I'm so bad at this.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt didn't look like Brad Pitt. And Kristen Dunst didn't look like Kristen Dunst. Tom Cruise didn't look like Tom Cruise. I think that's what sold this movie for me, is because I saw the characters and I didn't see the actors.
And I get that, but still, and this is one of the few times where they didn't match what I had in my head. And for me, Lestat needed to have this extremely, most mesmerizing voice. And that wasn't there.
The voice wasn't there, and I do understand that, having read the book after I watched the movie, but he had this presence that kind of drew you in, and that for me was enough.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't a bad job. It just didn't work for me. And part of it is, at the time, all of my friends were obsessed, and we have to. And I ended up seeing it, I want to say, like 4 or 5 times in the theater. So, I mean, I have seen, and then I watched it again recently. Well, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. I come from a very unconventional family, we'll say. My parents were pretty much hippies well before I came along, and then they became prudes when I was a child. Don't ask me how this happened. It doesn't make sense, because trust me, their teen years versus my teen years is black and white, day and night. So yeah, but my parents didn't let me see this, so I actually had to sneak to see this one.
Well, and I can see that. I mean, there were things that were graphic and not for kids, and
absolutely,
I don't ever have a problem with that.
trust be trained to make sure that my niece didn't see the graphic parts of this, and I had a stepmother who assumed that everything was fine and nothing was off limits for anybody. Yeah. Try fast forwarding through the scene where he's, you know, and your niece is screaming at you and your stepmom's going, "You're not her mom." Apparently you're not either.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that. Like I said, the most complimentary thing I could say was the set design and costuming.
Costuming was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
And I can't even say it was the acting. It was just that I couldn't get past that it was Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. Because when I looked, I did not see Lestat and Louis. I saw Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
I think it was fortunate that it came out when it did for me.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't gotten that far into knowing who actors were yet. Really.
I really hadn't either. I mean, at that point,
Christian.
But it was still a disconnect, and it just didn't click with me.
I have a thing. This came out years later when the Harry Potter series was getting really popular. I realized that I cannot read a book before I watch the movie if I want to enjoy the movie.
Here before I saw the movie and got bored at work and made a list of the differences and what worked and what didn't. And I worked at an agency at that point, and one of the guys was quite impressed with I didn't read his scripts after that. Because I did it off the top of my head. And like, okay, this was in the movie, this was in the book, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and this is why it didn't work.
To this day, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, I can't watch it without a visceral reaction to a very particular cut part of the book. It's because it was my favorite part of the book, and it wasn't on screen.
Yes. Well, and that happens. I mean, when the books are so large, they can't help.
Yeah.
And some books that should not be attempted to be adapted. Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. Leave it alone. Don't do it. Supposedly it's in development. For the love of God, leave my childhood favorite book alone. ABC did a short movie, and I threw things at my television. It was so bad.
Are we talking Star Wars Christmas special bad?
We're talking that is Academy Award winning compared to what this was.
Oh my!
Star Wars Christmas special. It was horrid, but it was entertaining horrid.
I think it's entertaining now. I don't think it was entertaining then.
Probably not. But again, with Interview, it was just a meh.
Okay, so even though it was a meh, can you tell us your favorite scene?
I actually like the beginning when he's sitting there and he's starting to speak, and the light comes up and you see him. That they got right. That I was like, okay, this is how it should be done. Problem, and I already said it, was the voice. And I can't even think of whose voice I don't want to hear.
James Spader.
I actually a little deeper.
James Earl Jones?
No, I had it. Actually, the guy who plays Ward from S.H.I.E.L.D. has a great voice.
I don't watch S.H.I.E.L.D. She's so mad at me that I still don't watch
it. It got better.
It really did. I'll get around to it eventually.
It got a lot better.
Probably.
He's got kind of a deep voice. Actually, James Marsters.
Ooh, yes. Of course, he's already been a vampire.
Yeah, well, he hadn't at that point. But someone who their voice lends them presence, whether or not you.
Still think James Spader has a perfect voice.
Yes.
Speaking of voices, did you know, I know I probably shouldn't say this because I'm going to be reviewing this soon, but I just found out, did you know that in Hocus Pocus, the kid who ended up playing Tim McGee on NCIS, who played Zachary Binks, he lip-synced his part. It wasn't his voice.
That apparently happens quite a bit. There was someone who...
Things, man.
Actually, Stephen Amell. I listened to H. Tyler's podcast with him. And there was a movie he did. and it was him, but someone else did the voice, and he was like, yeah, it was.
My phone's making its own appearance right now.
Yeah.
Turn that off.
But it was, fairly interesting, and he said, kind of embarrassing considering his friends and family were at the premiere as well. Yeah. But I don't know. The Interview just wasn't one of my favorite movies. I've seen it. I wanted to really like it. Not so much.
I'm just going to share this with everybody because it's awesome. My dad in technology is probably the funniest thing there is because he still doesn't understand how the Facebook or the YouTubes work, but he's an electronical engineer. What does that say? What is it? Read it exactly as it's written.
Arby's.
My dad wrote, I'm assuming Arby's, but it's period. We're starting with a period. AR space B space YS.
You need to introduce him to Swipe.
Oh no, I have. Have you seen my dad's got like club fingers? They're like this. I swear to God.
I know. I had a boss who had them, and that was the reason why I forbid him from touching the cash register when I worked.
So, yeah, my dad's quite entertaining when he wants to be. So, I just thought I'd share that with the class since it was bugging me. So, what was I know why it doesn't work for you, but what's your least favorite scene? What's the scene that bugs you the most?
When we first see, what's her face?
Nobody can see, but she's doing this. Are you talking about Kristen Dunst? It worked for me.
Okay, I hated the character.
Yeah, annoying character, granted.
And just, bah. I know, not an in-depth, but it bugged me. It bugged me in the book.
So for me, my least favorite scene was actually when you kind of find out that she's in love with him.
Okay. Yeah, which was...
Though I did like in the book and in the movie, I also did like how they went from beloved to beloved.
Mm-hmm.
How they made the distinction that I'd never really thought about before.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really nice. However, it is super creepy.
Yeah.
But my favorite scene, I have two, actually. One of my favorites is when she freaks out, cuts her hair, and finds out that she's always going to look exactly like that. I thought it was really well done. I felt like the character really reflected her age, both vampiric and not. Slight delay on the camera. She was a little bit older at that time, but not too terribly much.
Right.
She was still treated like a child, so she still acted like a child. But she was growing up, and she didn't understand it. She was finally coming to a mental age of understanding, hey, I'm grown up and I should. Mm-hmm. What's that all about? The other one, it's kind of weird. It's when Louis slits Lestat's throat, and she's like backing up, and she's like, Louis, and he just kind of picks her up and puts her on a table so that way her shoes don't get bloody.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that scene always stuck with me.
Well, I mean, visually it was amazing. I mean, visually the movie was stunning. It just, unfortunately...
I wanted those shoes, by the way. I wanted those dresses.
I
think a lot of it had to do with the lighting, because I've seen movies that use almost the same beautiful costuming, but if you do not have the lighting right, it won't show up as vibrant or beautiful.
Plus, shadows kind of add an air of mystery, and it just unfortunately didn't work for me on most levels.
So I give it a thumbs up. You give it what?
Well,
a medium?
More of a. Sorry, I'm like all backwards today. I give it a.
So it's almost there, but it's not quite.
Yeah, I mean, watch it. Make up your own mind. It's visually stunning.
Mm-hmm.
If you enjoyed the books, you'll probably enjoy it. you'll still nitpick and be like, it shouldn't have been
We all know that.
But just for me, it didn't work.
For me, it did.
Yeah.
So yay.
But on the other hand, Lost Boy is one of my favorite movies.
Tell me why it's your favorite movie.
It's fun. It was one of the first movies I remember being horror with comedy. Plus, actors who I could kind of understand how they were feeling because of the age.
Mm.
And I saw this movie more times than I admit, but let's just say I've seen it a lot. I can quote most of it. An amazing soundtrack. Still love the soundtrack. Yes, soundtrack's 80s. Yeah,
I was singing along when I was watching this.
Oh, yeah.
People is strange, really strange. I thought that was actually a really good way of opening up the movie, is because the song set a lot of the feel.
Yeah.
And you don't see that very often.
No. Jason Patric was great. And Corey Haim, who...
The Coreys!
The Coreys.
Oh my god. Which one was the... Okay, which one's not the brother of the Coreys?
Feldman. Corey Haim and Jason Patric were brothers.
You know, they intermix with my brain a lot because they're the Coreys.
Yeah.
Corey Feldman in this movie, I wanted to punch him the whole time.
You were supposed to. And I mean, then we have Edgar and Allan Frog, who were just wackadoos. But
the wackadoos annoyed me.
Just everything about this movie I liked. Alex Winter, Kiefer Sutherland, Edward Herrmann, and yes, I yelled, oh, now I'm totally blanking on his name. Edward Herrmann's character name, Max, when he was on Gilmore Girls.
I know.
I actually called my mom and went, Max! And then hung up because I knew she was watching Gilmore Girls. And my mom was obsessed with this movie too.
Oh, I loved Gilmore Girls.
You must be Max. Which I've heard in several movies, and I always think Jason Patric. Jamie Gertz, though.
You know, it's actually a lot of, I'll admit, I actually didn't watch it before today. I thought I had, but none of the movie felt familiar.
Oh.
So I actually watched it today.
Okay, well then one of my snarky comments you didn't get until today.
Yep.
She sounded like a moron when she said that. I'm sorry. Just the tone. It's just...
Funny fact, I had a friend named Star in high school. Her boyfriend's name was Zeno. It wasn't
even that. It was just how she delivered the line.
Yeah.
She sounded stupid.
She did. And my friend Star, I remember, met her. I was like, oh, what's your name? She's like, Star. And it was just like, she said it like you say a name. This wasn't said like you say a name. This was said like you say a title.
Yeah. So that didn't work. But other than that.
And yes, her mother was a hippie too.
The fight scene was amazing. Grandpa. Love Grandpa.
Okay.
Windex for
Grandpa is my favorite character.
Grandpa just kicks ass.
Grandpa's the greatest.
Yeah. Diane Wiest was amazing as the mom,
I don't get to see her play a mom very often.
No,
I actually really like that because it really works for her.
Alex Winter, who played, I want to say Marco, and yeah, I've seen this movie a lot if I can dredge that name up. Just the scene, the bathtub scene.
Okay, that was my one thing I hated about this movie.
What, the bathtub scene? Which one?
Where, for some reason, because you killed a vampire in a bathtub, that means all of the plumbing is going to sprout gooey blood.
I hate to tell you, but some older houses, the plumbing is interconnected, and I've seen what comes out of that when you run certain things through them.
It just felt gory for the point of being gory.
Well, yeah, it was a horror film. It was the one time they had to do it.
And that was, okay, I did give it this. When I watched it, there was a moment where I looked away, not because I'm grossed out by blood and gore, because I get bored and I get annoyed by it.
Okay, but you have to remember when this was done.
And that's what I was going to say was this movie was a product of when it came out and Joel Schumacher.
Didn't hate it. One of my favorite movies.
No, I didn't hate it. I loved it. I'm just saying that I had to, and I went into it with the right thought process. Yeah. And this is what I wanted to say for those watching. If Do we have people? I am assuming we have writers.
I know one person who watches.
Oh yay! To the one person out there, if you haven't seen it yet, just know that this came out when blood and gore was very, very. It had to be done this way, and horror wasn't taken seriously yet.
And it was before CGI, so just.
Yeah, that was the one thing I really could have done without the blood that looked like syrup.
It made me laugh. It still makes me laugh.
It just made me go, eh.
And my favorite line in the movie, death by stereo.
I did laugh. I mean, I was gross.
Is,
I watched it. I was like, really? That's okay. But then he said death by stereo, and I started laughing.
Yeah, and that's what is so good about this movie, that it blends comedy and horror.
Yes.
The only other movie that I know that does it this well is Slither. And Slither, there were parts that I was like, oh, this is revolting.
I still haven't seen it.
James Gunn, Nathan Fillion.
I'm going to.
It's
One day.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what's your favorite scene? And don't say the whole movie.
There are so many. But I honestly think it's where vampire tells their mom and he's freaking out. And he's like, Sammy, I'm your brother. And he and hangs up. It showed so much of their relationship.
Yeah.
And, the whole terror of, your brother's floating and becoming a blood-sucking fiend.
Some of the dialogue in this movie really had me laughing for a while.
And I loved it. That's what I love. Actually, my favorite scene, though, is the last scene.
Yes. And I will completely agree with you there. That is my favorite scene as well.
You have to understand, I saw this movie. Oh, God, I'm actually going to make this thing. Screaming. One of the pre-screens.
Wow.
Yes. And do not do the math. And theater was packed. And that line, you could have heard a pin drop. And then the entire audience goes, oh my God, he knew all along!
That was the best.
Yes.
I absolutely. I was watching and I was like waiting for him to say something because I knew he would say something.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is he gonna say? And then he said something. And I'm like, oh my God,
yes.
That's the best thing.
Yes.
That's like you couldn't end the movie better than that.
No,
I mean,
this is one of the few movies that really, for the most part, I don't have any complaints. No, it's not. There are films. For me, there are films and there are movies. This is a movie.
Yes. So,
but so much fun.
Having said that, because I do like to ask everybody what their least favorite scene is. I'm gonna not say the scene you hate the most, but the scene you like the least.
The beach scene where she's dancing around and it just seemed too hippy dippy.
Okay, I like that scene.
Yeah,
I could have done without the bath scene.
Okay, and I like that scene because it shows you what they're dealing with, and again, the special effects didn't bother me. Soundtrack though is awesome. One of the first times I had heard Echo and the Bunnymen. So
we both give this like as many thumbs up as humanly possible.
Yes.
So having talked about 2 vampire movies, I want to just talk about vampires in general because they're great and they're not Twilight.
Read. My personal thing is read Anita Blake the first 5 books, and then stop because she's porn.
Yes.
And I'm not against porn, but when I have to get a napkin and diagram out who's doing what to whom, and I can't make it work, there's a problem.
I call that PWP, porn without plot.
I know what that acronym means, and no, it's not even porn without plot. It's just boring.
I was told the same thing by other people. I actually haven't read it, but I've been told this by many people. Hey, you should read the first 5 and then stop.
Yeah.
Because.
Yeah. Also, vampire books, Kim Harrison, the Hollow series. The final one just came out, and I read extremely quickly. With my ass in college. I mean, I blasted through the last Harry Potter book in 18 hours.
I hate you. A bit.
Sorry. And that was with eating, sleeping breaks. But Kim Harrison, The Hollows is a wonderful series. It didn't drag on too long. And you like her vampires. She does an interesting living vampire thing. And first death, second death. Even though vampires aren't the main characters in the books, they're still a very powerful thing in the book.
I'm going to give the viewers, a little homework assignment. I read a book that I still don't know who it's by, and I haven't been able to find it since. I read this book in high school, and this was my Twilight, because I think it may have been called Silver Kiss. I think. I don't know. But anyway, it was about a 17-year-old girl falls in love with this older vampire. He kind of is creepy and stalkery a little bit, and it was super short. I'm talking paperback and thin. If anybody knows what book I'm talking about or thinks they know.
You were reading a Harlequin imprint? Okay, and guys, I worked at a bookstore.
This I found in a library.
They have Harlequins.
In a school library?
They may not have known what it was.
True. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, help me, please. So I read that. That was.
Well, the only reason I'm saying that is when you said how thin it was. That's about.
It wasn't that thin, but it was
Harlequin-ish length.
It was bigger than Harlequin-ish length,
okay.
But it was smaller than your general paperback.
Okay.
It was like a novella.
Okay.
So, what I recommend to people is what I always recommend to people. Patricia Briggs writes great books.
I haven't gotten into her yet.
Oh, so good.
And
she has a vampire who drives a mystery machine and wears Scooby-Doo t-shirts.
Okay. Kim Harrison
and knows sign language.
Has a witch named Rachel, a pixie named Jinx, vamp named Ivy, and they are runners. They are essentially federal agents for part of the series. And I actually listened to the final book on Audible, so I would not, read the whole thing in 7 hours. So,
as a writer, sometimes I have to pigeonhole down what I like. And so when I write usually werewolves more than anything else. I also write humans and aliens and all kinds of things. But when I write vampires, how do I like my vampires? I like them to not be able to walk in daylight.
Okay.
I like them to not have a grotesque mutation of the face. I want their face to be normal. I want them to get fangs. I'm okay with their eyes change. That one's not one I've ever actually pigeonholed much. But I like it when they look like they are people still when they vamp out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like them to look like, I can't.
You don't like Buffy?
I actually don't like how they do vampires in Buffy.
Comparison, neither one would bother you because they still look like, and since there are living vampires and it's like stage 1 and stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 2 cannot go outside.
I like damnfires. Most people don't know what a damnfire is.
I know the word, but
it's basically the in-between point. You're no longer quite human, but you're not a vampire.
Okay, that's essentially what she uses for living vampire.
I like that. I like that it takes more than just one quick moment to turn you. I like when it is a process. However, I do like the whole idea of having to drain somebody just to the brink. And this was in The Gates, which was a great series and should have never been canceled. And please, dear God, somebody bring it back because it was amazing. And I loved it. But anyway, in The Gates, they actually explain. And oddly enough, it's the girl that plays Melissa on Teen Wolf. It's the girl that plays Scott's mom.
Yeah. And
she's a vampire in The Gates. And I thought that was cool. A lot of people on Teen Wolf were in The Gates, except for like the main characters. But Colton Hayes was in the Gates. He was a werewolf. He's done werewolf twice. Lyndon Ashby, who I've talked about in a previous podcast, who I love, he plays the sheriff on Teen Wolf. He was a vampire in the Gates. But anyway, so Melissa's character, I can't quite remember her name, but she explains it how you make a vampire, which is to take them just to the brink of death, just before the brink of death, and immediately stop drinking from them and give them your blood. And that the way it was explained alluded to the fact that it's very easy to fuck up and they just die.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which I like. That's how I like them.
Yeah.
How do you like your vampires?
I like Kim Harrison's. I like what they do. And I'm not gonna. Let's put it this way. I can normally plot out how books are gonna go. Kim Harrison surprised me every time.
Ooh, that's
and even in the final book, there were a couple of plot twists that I'm driving and going, what the hell? I would have never thought of that. And it was really interesting how she wrapped up the series. And yes, for some people it has a nice little bow on it. But on the other hand, what she said is Rachel will be a grown-up at the end of this. Not saying she wasn't an adult before, but there's a difference between being an adult and actually being a grown-up where
That's nice.
You've got your act together.
There's a huge difference.
Yeah. And there was one thing that she did the Harry Potter thing where she went forward like the last chapter. But you know what? It did work.
It actually worked in this case.
Yeah, because of a couple of things that they did. And there was still one last curveball that I went, oh my God. And as for other writers, I haven't read, I've read like one stories and one that
Patricia Briggs gives curveballs like you would not believe. What I loved was there was a question, for those who are a fan, there's always been a question of how long have Samuel and Bran been alive and exactly how were they turned? And, fans had always been asking this question because it was one of the best mysteries of the series because she does such a good job with secondary characters, like you wouldn't believe. These are secondary characters, very much so. I mean, they're not even introduced till I can't remember. But it's been a while. But anyway, I always loved it, and I always loved wondering, and me and my friends would talk about it. And she came out with a short story book recently where she actually goes into their history. And then gives you more things to be curious about.
And that's what I like, because Harrison did the same thing. She's actually, be downloaded now. She did a character, and demons are a huge part of Kim Harrison's role. In fact, there's the, another one, anyway. Train of Thought, again, 5 a.m.
We'll get you there.
It's gone. It'll come back later.
The other thing that I loved was in the Dresden Files.
Yes.
I love how they do vampires in the Dresden Files.
That was one of the few I liked the book and
Yes.
the book and the TV show. Paul Blackthorne is awesome.
He's also in the Gates.
Yes, yeah.
He's a vampire in the Gates. Sorry, there's just so many people in the Gates. I don't know how it did not survive.
Because it was quirky enough that people didn't get it. It's kind of like I am dumbstruck every year they renew Haven.
I know. I love Haven so much.
No, I'm still not caught up yet.
I am.
I'm not.
This is when I try and force my friends to watch what I watch because I can't hold it all in.
And unless I had Hermione's Time Turner, when would I have had time to watch that? Because
So that's a little bit about vampires.
Yes.
We always like to just throw in something different. What is your something different this week?
I had it. Soundtracks.
Yes.
I have
Our Lady music.
Yes, but actually this is unusual because they're both video game soundtracks. Thank you, Ruben.
I'm still rocking out to the Mortal Kombat theme song.
Well, it's Transistor and Bastion. Yes, I remember.
I love how you just pop up there.
Yeah.
Boom! I remember the light bulb.
Today, that kind of is it. Bastion, and no, I haven't played the games. They're gorgeous though. I mean, I've watched them being played and they're absolutely visually stunning. And the woman who sings vocals they're both done by Darren Korb, pretty sure. Arrow season 2 soundtrack has been released, and I want it.
I think she's trying to make a cute little way of telling certain persons that watch this. No. Just anybody.
Do you
want us to put your mailing address in the comments?
You know what? You can like Stephanie Bray 101 at MP3. Yeah. See, and I'm not proud because I like Neely's music, and actually I'm going to write a piece on that. Anyway, I need sleep. Darren Korb did Transistor and Bastion, and they're both very different styles of game. Bastion actually has an Old West tone, and Transistor is just odd, but they're gorgeous, and the music is perfect. And the woman who does vocals, my guy was making dinner one night, and this came on. I'm like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And he's like, Bastion soundtrack. And then I whined for a week until he finally burned it for me because, yeah. And I've had it on, I've been working part-time and doing it requires no thought, but it's actually a cool job. But packing subscription boxes, and I'm not going to talk about that anymore. And
I think you're allowed to say you work for somebody.
I Loot Crate, but there.
Little shout out.
Yeah, and
I've shown my Loot Crate stuff on
and amazing company. They are wonderful people. But I've been listening to it while I'm packing subscription boxes, and I can actually tell which soundtrack it is. And that's how different the tones are and the music, but her voice is just amazing. And I want to know who this is, and I can't find it because it doesn't really list it. So I highly recommend those 2 soundtracks.
I recommend Ninja Sex Party, because I'm a fracking dork.
No, I've never heard them, actually.
I love them so much. And Starbomb, which is kind of, they have a lot of the same members.
Okay.
But it's a little different. Okay. And those are more video games that they parody songs. They're kind of like Weird Al, but as a band.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
They are. They're great. And I've seen them live, and they're amazing live.
I have seen them. Yeah, I have. And the show was it.
I went to an amazing show.
Yes. Well, the show was fun. It was just, anyway. Old Man Markey. They were great. They were fun. They were like a electric bluegrass punk.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I really liked about Lost Boys was the punk element.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
I miss punk. I miss when people look really punkish. Yeah. I want to go back to that time sometimes.
You should. So, yeah.
Somebody owns the lots of Doc Martens.
Somebody has to break in a pair of Doc Martens, which is hell on earth. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. When I'm at work, because I don't have to walk very much.
Yes.
I'm just
okay, yes. So how do we end this one?
Oh, 2 comic books that should be checked out. Death Vigil. I can't explain it. It's amazing story, cool art. Twist on guy starts to die and a minion of death, and I know this isn't how they described it, but it's how I'm describing it, asks him if he wants to help get, vengeance and help others. And he takes her up on it.
Cool.
And Deadly Class, going with the dead thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's Halloween month.
Halloween month, yeah.
So yes, all of my reviews this month will be Halloween based in some way, shape, or form. This week is witches.
Cool.
So it should be practical magic.
Deadly Class is a school for teenage assassins.
Oh, I gotta read this. I think you told me about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I think Death of Wolverine comes out this week. Which
perfect timing.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
And that's it. Well,
nobody stays dead. So why should we matter if somebody dies?
Yeah, but if you are going to kill off someone, can it not be Logan?
I know.
I can name like 4 other characters off.
Jean Grey. Can she permanently be dead for the rest of the comic book.
See, I don't. She doesn't bother me as much.
She's Jonathan's favorite character, but she's my least favorite.
Cyclops is kind of boring.
Cyclops, yes. Cyclops, Jean. Ooh, really?
Well, at least the comics I've read with Storm, I've kind of wanted to just kick her.
I think I'm going to throw some back issues at you later.
Okay.
So definitely John Romita Jr. era.
Yeah.
When she was Punk Storm with the Mohawk. Fucking love that.
Yeah.
That's when she really got...
Actually, just tell me what they are. Anyway, we'll talk about this after. Sorry. But, yeah, and Arrow soundtrack season 2, it came out apparently last month, and I don't know why I didn't catch that. I'm going to be doing a piece, and since I'm saying this, it means I actually have to do it this week. It'll be up by...
I love that face.
It'll be up by Friday. When I'm going to find the time to do this, I have no clue. Comparing in Flash and Arrow music, because even though they are done with the same person, they are vastly different, at least to me.
So
that'll be on Fangirl Nation.
Yes, Fangirl Nation, which we will also have below.
Yes.
So next week is going to be Hocus Pocus and Practical Magic, my 2 favorite witch movies, which I think I'm actually doing Amber. I think. Yeah, I know. But we'll catch her at the end of this month.
Yes. So, stuff you were not living in on. Her camera is freaking out, and it picks the weirdest times where I look like I'm being abducted by aliens or something.
Oh no, that would be a podcast with my father.
And again, Geek Fashion Week. Look at links.
I'll be at Comikaze as well.
Also, and even though I'm not doing this, there will be a singles event at Comikaze on Saturday. I'll be there. If I am, it's because I'm volunteering.
Yeah. She's happily with somebody. Because she met at one of the singles events.
Yes, I did.
Happily.
Very happily.
Success story right here.
Yes. So, it should be a lot of fun. Actually, the event last year was a lot of fun. We were just in a way too small room. And
yeah, we should have that fixed this year.
Yeah. So, check it out. And that's it.
We've been crazy for vampires.
Yes. Vanessa.
Stephanie.
Bye.